Hello, welcome to Be Free Yoga. My name is Inger. This is Rosie, and today is our first ever yoga pose tutorial. These tutorials are designed to help beginners familiarize themselves with some common yoga poses they might encounter in any class, or the more advanced students to hone in on proper form and alignment. And everybody will be able to learn some modifications that might help yoga work in their particular bodies. Today's class is going to be all about the beginning of a yoga class, things you might encounter in the opening portion. So our theme is the beginner's mind. For these tutorials, you'll need 2 yoga blocks, a yoga strap. You could also use a belt or a dish towel or something, but if you can get a strap, they're pretty nice to have around. And a blanket of any kind of rolled up like a Tootsie Roll. Your yoga mat, some comfortable clothes. And if you're like me, maybe you don't enjoy practicing yoga in a room full of mirrors. But I actually find when you're working on yoga poses casually and in this amount of depth, it's helpful to be able to see yourself in a mirror. So if you have a full-length mirror and you want to bring it into your practice space just for today, because sometimes you'll be like, my knee's totally stacked over my ankle, and then you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, it's not even remotely stacked over my ankle. So either a friend to reflect back to you or a mirror can be great. I want to start off class before we get started just with some reminders about yoga in general. Yoga builds strength and flexibility over time, which is amazing, but that's not what it's really about. It's about unlocking the energy in your body and getting it flowing so that you can fully inhabit your body, make friends with your body, and use that as a gateway to present moment awareness, where you can find serenity, connection, and peace. Yoga began 4,000 years ago, and for 2,000 years there was no mention of any physical yoga poses. It was all about spirituality and breath work. So there's a huge emphasis on physical fitness in our modern culture, but it's not really what yoga is about. And I find that reminder helps me to approach my practice with a lot of kindness and acceptance of where I'm at. So try and adopt that mindset from the very beginning. So yoga is about getting to know ourselves. It's important to modify and to get to know your own body. Injuries are very infrequent in yoga compared to other forms of physical fitness. But when they do occur, it's often in overly flexible people. When your muscles and joints are super loose, you end up relying on your ligaments for structure, and that can lead to injury. So if you're very flexible, it's important to focus on strength and engaging the muscles rather than going deeply into the posture to help you get that structure to protect yourself. If you're like me and you're not very naturally flexible, you have tight muscles, strong muscles, and that does protect your joints, but you might end up using brute force to kind of, embody a certain posture, and you're not really engaging or opening the things that you're supposed to be engaging and opening. So for the less flexible people, it's important to just really pay attention to the verbal cues of the teacher and try and really feel what you're supposed to be feeling in the posture. Take breaks when you need them. It's funny, I've noticed that in a lot of the yoga classes I've taken around town, when you see somebody kind of like in part of the class doing their own thing, maybe doing some stretching on the floor, it's always either another teacher or an advanced yogi, because they're not trying to prove anything to anybody anymore, and they're really listening to their bodies and doing what they need. So please give yourself that permission from the very start to tune into what you need that day and to make your practice your own. And if you need a little break, take one and then join back in when you feel like it's right to do so. Now, this is an important one. You can't judge if someone's doing a yoga posture properly by how they look. We all have different musculatures, of course, but we also all have different skeletal systems. So even if someone is super flexible, they may not be able to do a traditional version of a posture because their skeletal system maybe doesn't allow their hips to open enough, or whatever the case may be. So the only way to know if you're doing a yoga pose properly is by how it feels in your body. Are you feeling the opening where you're supposed to be feeling it? Are you feeling the lifting? Are you feeling the sinking? Are you feeling the engagement? So comparisons are really pretty useless in life and on your yoga mat. So yet another thing you can just let go of. So the structure of a yoga class is kind of what we're going to be following in our 5-part series of yoga pose tutorials. And today, as I mentioned, is the beginning. This is the opening of class. It is where we sort of withdraw from the stress and busyness of the world and get really present on our mat. We check in with our bodies. We notice what's going on with ourselves so that we can make good choices throughout class. The second tutorial will be about the warming up section, Sun Salutation A, where we start to build heat in our body. The third tutorial will be about Sun Salutation B, which is like the meatiest part of class. It's a more complex flow that we do 2 or 3 times, involving more poses than the Sun A. Then we have the standing series. That'll be our 4th tutorial, which is our peak postures, the things we've been getting ready for, and a lot of balancing poses. And then our final class, the 5th tutorial, will be cooling down, and it will be all the juicy stretching at the end of class and the assimilating of what we've learned on our mats. So that's about it. I just wanted to give you guys that background. Hopefully that's helpful, puts you in a good, accepting, loving mindset as you begin to try out some of these poses. I would like to introduce my able assistant today, Ananda. She is my middle child and an experienced yogi, and she'll be demonstrating things for you. And we are just going to start in an easy seat on our mats. Close your eyes and rest your hands on your thighs. Take any kind of seat that works for you. If you feel any pressure in your lower back, it can be nice to sit on the edge of your blanket or a block to help neutralize your lower spine. Find a position that's comfortable for you. Relax your shoulders. Lengthen the back of your neck as you lift your chin, and imagine a string tied to the top of your head, lifting you taller. The first level of pranayama, or breath work in yoga, is simply breath awareness. So as you start your class here, just start to notice the inhales and the exhales, how they get deeper and longer as you settle in. In our yoga flows, whenever we're inhaling, we're often like rising up, expanding, stretching, getting big. And then when we're exhaling, we're sinking lower, folding over, contracting. So as you're breathing here, just start to embody that growth and the grounding of the inhales and the exhales. And then join me in taking a full deep inhale through your nose and an open mouth exhale, sigh it out. Inhale again, energize your body, and then open mouth exhale, relax. One more time, big breath in and sigh it out. Stay here with your eyes closed to set an intention for your class. As we explore the beginning of a yoga class, have the intention to inhabit your beginner's mind. Approach everything with curiosity, and no matter what your experience level, be open to learning new things. Take one more inhale to seal this intention. And sigh it out. Wonderful. Open your eyes. Do a few neck stretches as we get started. Just drop your chin to your chest. With each exhale, let it fall a little bit deeper, stretching the back of your neck and shoulders. And then on the next inhale, roll your head to one shoulder, pause there. Maybe rock forward and back a little bit, feeling into any areas of tightness. Big breath in, and exhale, roll your chin down to center. Inhale, head to the other shoulder. Feel into it, rock back and forth. Big breath in, and then roll it down. Then on the inhale, look up high. Make this a gentle stretch. Let your eyes go even higher than your face. And come back to neutral. And then look to one side of the room, drop your opposite shoulder. And to the other side of the room. And come back to center. Great. Now that we're really present on our mat, one of the most common places that any yoga class starts is in child's pose. So let's give that a try. Your knees are as wide as your mat. Your big toes come together to touch. Rest on your shins and then reach your arms forward and bring your forehead to the mat and your hips to your heels. With each exhale, feel your belly sinking in between your thighs. Let your shoulders open. This is a great posture to come to anytime you need a break, but it's not comfortable for everybody's body. So here's a few things you can do to maybe modify it. Ananda, if you lift your hips a little bit. Sometimes if your hips don't come all the way to your heels, it can be nice to tuck a blanket in between your thighs and your shins for a little support. Another place you can put the blanket is underneath your ankles. This is great for people whose toes don't point very well naturally. There might be a big gap there, and this can offer some support to your ankles. If you'd like your shoulders to open even a little bit more today, it can be great to put your hands on your blocks. Lift your elbows and press your hands into the blocks as you sink your chest low. This makes more of an active child's pose, but can be really great for opening your shoulders and starting to build some heat. And then you could also have your blocks underneath your elbows. Oh, do you want them this way? You leave enough space in between the blocks for your head to sink down between your blocks and towards the floor. Bend your elbows, interlace your hands, and then with each exhale, press your chest lower. Beautiful. You can also adjust the width of your knees based on what's comfortable in your body to make child's pose right for you. Great. But the teacher may say, start in child's pose, and it just doesn't really feel very relaxing to you. So there's a lot of other ways to start class. The next one we'll do is Supta Bhattachanasana. Grab your blocks and come to lay on your back. Soles of your feet together and knees wide. Bring your blocks underneath your knees and let them fall open. Left hand on your heart, right hand on your belly. Melt into the earth with each exhale. You may not need the blocks under your knees per se. Maybe your hips are very open, but at the beginning of class, it really helps you relax to have this extra support. With your hand on your heart and your hand on your belly, you can feel the rise and fall of your belly and chest, bringing awareness to where your breath, your prana is filling up your body. And you can also send some love through your hands and into your body and give and take. One other fun modification for this, maybe you're feeling a little tight in your chest. You can roll up your blanket. I'm going to stick this on your spine, Ananda. Underneath your spine in Supta Bhattachanasana. And your shoulders sort of fall open. Your rib cage wraps around the blanket. If you want more of heart opening, you can outstretch your arms like wings, or maybe even hold the opposite elbows overhead. All different ways to support yourself with props in Supta Bhattachanasana. Great. Okay, next we're going to do supported fish. I'll grab this blanket. So you take your blocks. This is also on your back. Create a shape of a T with your blocks. One block under your head like a pillow and one between your shoulder blades. Outstretch your legs and come to lay on your back. The most common thing that I see misalignment in this posture, which Ananda is demonstrating for me because she's such a good assistant, is when you have this second block way down by your lower back. Our lower backs are super flexible already and they don't need a lot of opening. They're prone to injury. But if we move this block way up so it's like almost touching the other block, is that all right? Then it's opening up our upper back, which is tighter. It allows our chest to open more. Then if we keep our belly a little bit engaged to support our lower back, we can protect it. That will depend on how much support you need. I like to let my feet just fall out so I can be really relaxed in supported fish. But you could point them inwardly, rotating your thighs if you want it to be more active. And if you want to even relieve the pressure on your lower back a little more, you can plant your feet on the floor in broken bridge, as wide as your mat with your knees knocking in. Beautiful. Again, you have arm variations, your arms wide. And if the blocks really just feel like too much for you, you also have the option of the blanket along your spine like we did in child's pose. And I'll demonstrate having it underneath your shoulder blades as well. Maybe I'm up a little high. There we go. That would be a little gentler than the blocks, but still quite a bit of an opening, right, Nanda? Yeah, you can still really feel it. And I just love putting it along my spine. That's so supportive and relaxing. So that is supported fish. Another common way that we start class is belly down Shavasana. So for that one, you'll need your two blocks in the shape of an inverted V underneath your shoulders as you lay face down on the floor. Extend your arms to the back of the room and let your heels fall open. With each inhale, you can feel your belly ground into the earth. And you don't have to leave your blocks where you put them the first time. You might need to do a little adjustment to make sure they're under your shoulders, right where you want. I love this one. This is great if you need some earth energy, just grounding because you're so connected. And then our last opening posture, which we will demonstrate today, is Shavasana, which is also how we end every class. But sometimes we start class this way, and every time I teach that, the whole class is like, oh, yay, because everybody loves Shavasana. And that's just laying on your back. You want to let your toes fall open. Wrap your shoulder blades underneath your back to create a shelf for your heart. Feel your hips open, your shoulders open, and relax the muscles in your face. You can have your palms up to bring in energy, to open your heart space, or occasionally you may want to have your palms down to ground you, exchange energy with the earth. A very relaxing modification for this is to put blocks or your blanket underneath your knees. Is that good? which also relieves any stress on your lower back. The stillness that you find in Shavasana is really what our whole entire yoga practice is about. We could do this any time of day, anywhere. So those are the various opening postures. Now we'll move on. Remove your blocks, hug your knees to your chest and rock and roll up. This is a nice spinal massage. You can rock a few times. And then when you're ready, meet in tabletop. Tabletop is a foundational posture. The most important thing we want to be aware about is how much pressure we're putting on our wrists. Your wrists should be stacked under your shoulders and your knees under your hips. Spread your fingers wide and push into the pads of your fingertips so that your palms almost lift up off the floor. I call these your tiger claws. By using all the parts of our hands, it takes some of the pressure off our wrists. If you have any specific wrist injuries, and even this is uncomfortable, you always have the option to be on your fists so that your wrists can be straight the whole time. But we'll be in tiger claws for now. As far as your legs, press the tops of your feet and your toenails into the floor to activate your hamstrings and your glutes and keep this posture really active. When we're here, there's many different things we do in tabletop at the beginning of class. One of them is cat-cow. I like to start with cow. On the inhale, soften your belly, reach your tailbone high, and look forward. You can imagine drawing your hip bones to your shoulders. And then exhale, round your spine for cat. Tuck your tailbone and your chin. Push into the earth to puff up your back. Hang your head between your biceps. Then inhale, cow. Beautiful. And exhale, cat. You can already start to see here the hyperextension of Ananda's elbows. She's actually a great model to have because she's got to be really aware of keeping that micro bend in her arms when she's doing things like this so that they don't bend too much. And then come back to neutral. We've already warmed up our spine with that dynamic movement. Now we'll move into thread the needle. On the inhale, root into your left hand, reach your right arm high for an open twist. And then exhale, thread the needle. Send your right arm underneath the arch of your body created by your left arm and bring your right cheek and shoulder to the mat. Reach your tailbone high. Press into the back of your right arm to deepen your twist. If it does not work in your body to have your head and shoulder on the mat in this way, you can always use the blocks to bring the floor closer to you. And then you're still able to push into the back of your arm and deepen your twist. Beautiful. Of course, as you progress, you can do other things with your left arm. You could send it overhead. You could take a half bind. Some people even extend their left leg back diagonally. It's really fun, all the different things we can do once we get used to this thread the needle. Okay, on your next inhale, unwind, send your right arm high for a counter twist, and come back to neutral tabletop. Doing great. Let's do that on the other side so we can stay relatively even. Left arm high, and thread the needle. Find the option that works for you. Again, you can use your blocks if you want. You could take the bind. Beautiful. Take one more inhale here. Exhale, unwind. Come back onto your hands. Push into your right hand. Reach your left arm high. And back to neutral tabletop. Check in with your tiger claws, your alignment, wrists under your shoulders, knees under your hips. Next, we're going to do spinal balance or sunbird. One fun little trick is resting a block on your hips to make sure that they stay level. It's optional, but we'll have Ananda do it today. Inhale, reach your right arm forward like you're shaking someone's hand. Make sure you have your tiger claw going on the left. And then extend your opposite leg, your left leg back. You want to dial your left hip down. It's closed hip posture. Keep your entire back body activated. Reach through your heel and your hand in opposing directions. That's great. Take one more inhale and exhale, release. Prepare for the other side. Ground into your right hand. Extend your left arm high to the front of the room, and then your right leg back. If this feels like too much, you always have the option of only doing your arm or only doing your leg. Look how Ananda's neck is in line with her spine, her biceps by her ear. Hip is lowered. Scissor your thighs together. Beautiful. One more inhale. Exhale, lower. And she didn't drop her block. Yay. And since we practiced, I added in beast pose here. I love beast pose. You just get in your nice tabletop with your tiger claw hands, tuck your toes, draw your belly in, and then hover your knees. Really think about pulling your shoulders and your hips together. That movement will help activate your core. And this is a really great strength builder. If you're finding down dog difficult, this is a really good place to practice, and you can lower down. Nice. So those are all our various tabletop things. Of course, there's more, but those are the common things we do. And then we tuck our toes and move into down dog. So you out there may want to sit and watch for a second while Ananda demonstrates, and then you can give it a try. When we're lifting our hips from tabletop to down dog, it's really important to lead with your hips. Draw your belly up and in and straighten your legs. If you're not using your hips, you're going to try and use your shoulders, pushing with your hands, and that can stress your shoulders too much. Your first down dog of the day, I always recommend bending your knees a little or a lot so that you can focus on flattening your spine. Press your chest low and open your shoulders as you reach your tailbone high. If you press your hands forward and down, you'll feel your tailbone lift up and back. Notice how Ananda's head is in line with her biceps, keeping a nice straight spine. Because of the hyper flexibility of her elbows, she's keeping a micro bend, which makes this kind of challenging to hold for a long time, but you're doing great. And then you press your heels towards the ground by pedaling out your legs at first. We're still getting warm. This pedaling out of the legs, if you're new to down dog, just do this all the time. Keep it dynamic. And then as you progress, eventually you'll be able to hold it in a static way. Think about no compression in this posture. We don't want to be sinking down into our shoulders. Everything's lifted. Flatten your shoulder blades on your back. Press your chest low. All right. You could also widen or narrow your stance, whatever works best in your body. And Nanda, I think you can take a break if you want while everybody else gives it a try at home. And again, if you're in tabletop and or any teacher instructs tuck your toes, exhale down dog, and that movement is not possible for you yet, I encourage you to try beast pose. Even just for a second, you'll gradually build the strength of lifting your hips like that, and before you know it, you'll be able to lift them all the way into down dog. Let me show you another option if you're working your way up to down dog. Nanda, let's come over and stand in front of the wall. If you press your palms on a wall at shoulder height, this is a great way to start working on your down dog. Then you can just open your shoulders and press your chest low and send your hips back. Notice how Ananda stepped back so that her feet are still in line with her hips. She can get that nice shoulder opening, pressing her hands into the wall. Then over time, maybe she could walk her hands down the wall, getting a little bit lower. Maybe eventually she could bring her hands onto a chair or a bench, and then even onto some blocks as she works her way down. Now maybe at this point she's going to start stepping her feet back for more of a down dog type posture, and then eventually work her way onto the floor. Beautiful. So, set up near a wall in a yoga class and start doing your down dogs that way. You can maybe alternate doing that in the beast pose where you lift your knees and start building up strength. Thanks, Ananda. And I know people always say down dog is a resting posture. And I feel like to a beginner, you can be like, hell, that's not a resting posture. That's so hard. But I remember there was this moment a couple years after I started to practice where we were doing like a strenuous flow and the teacher cued us into down dog, and I was like, oh, phew, I'm so glad I'm here. And I thought, oh, this is the moment where down dog became a resting posture. It's never like perfectly easy, but it does become a place you're kind of happy to be after a while. So just stick with it. If you want to pause the recording and play with down dog for a while, you can, but we're going to move on and try high plank. So for high plank, again, stacking your shoulders over your wrists, tiger claw hands, straight legs, knees lifted. The most common misalignments that you see here is people's hips being too high, which stresses your shoulders, or hips being too low, which stresses your lower back. We want one line of energy from the heels all the way up to the crown of the head. If you push into the floor, you can puff up the valley between your shoulder blades. Super engagement right there. Beautiful. Look at that. Great adjustment. You're drawing everything towards the midline, firming up your thighs. And then imagine my hand is behind your head and you lift your head to meet it. Beautiful. Lifted head makes you lighter. Modification is to come down to your knees. If we're on our knees, we still want that one line of energy, but now it goes from the crown of your head to your knees. You could have your hips too high. You could have your hips too low, but we want them right in the middle, still with that puffing up engagement of the scapular push-up. Beautiful. Head lifted in line with your spine. Nice. That is it. So, a lot of times when we're flowing, we want to make sure that our down dog has the proper space between the hands and the feet to keep us safe in our flowing movements. And plank is how we determine that. If you're in plank and you lift your hips, that is the proper spacing for down dog during a flow. Let's do that a few times. Come forward through plank and then lead with your hips, not your shoulders, into down dog. One more time, plank and down dog. Then if you're hanging out in down dog for a while, that's when, if you want to, you could walk your feet in. I bet Ananda can go really far. Look at that, and still have her heels on the floor. That'll probably give her a better stretch, but she wouldn't want to do that when she's flowing because she wouldn't be able to hinge forward into plank. That would put too much stress on her shoulders. All right. That is that. Okay. So once we've gone into down dog at the beginning of class, we often move into ragdoll. So let's both go into down dog. And I'll say, inhale, look to the top of your mat. Exhale, ragdoll. Take tiny steps forward. Then separate your feet hip width distance apart. That can be tested by bringing 2 fists in between your feet. Sometimes people think hip width is really wider than it actually is. Bend your knees a lot so that your torso is hanging over your thighs. You can feel the edges melting around your thighs. Nanda, why don't you do it a little more just for demonstration? Yeah, for a lot of people it might look more like that if they're not really flexible. Holding opposite elbows is nice because it tips you forward into the balls of your feet, which is the alignment that we want. A lot of times we'll say, shake your head yes, shake your head no. That's to help loosen up your shoulders and your neck. I wanted to demonstrate one other way to get into ragdoll. For some people, Walking your feet forward like that just doesn't really work. So one thing I've noticed is really good is to walk your hands and your feet together. And then you can just kind of walk to the front and assume the position. Create the transitions that work for you in your body. So when we're here, there's other things we can do with our arms. One is a heart opener, interlacing your hands behind your back and then reaching your knuckles high and pressing your palms together. This is a great example of how things look versus how they feel. When she doesn't have her palms together, look at how far she can go. Very impressive. But by pressing the palms together, I'm guessing you feel the opening even more. So her knuckles might not be quite as high, but that's okay. Another thing we can do is to hold opposite elbows behind our legs and then play around with straightening our legs a tiny bit to deepen the fold. Ananda can probably just straighten all the way, but for some of us, a little straightening has a big effect in our back. We also have the infinity grip, where you reach your hands to the back of the room, then bring them forward between your legs and place opposite palms on opposite shins. Here also, we can straighten our legs a tiny bit to deepen our fold. In Ragdoll, we're really working on opening up our back more than our legs at this point, so keep that in mind. All right, we'll take one more inhale here. Exhale, release your grip. Toe heel your feet together. You want your big toes to touch and a slight space between your heels. That way your feet will be aligned well. Now, with soft knees, bent knees, and a heavy head, slowly roll up, let your arms hang down. We're unfurling one vertebra at a time. Oh, it feels so good. Your head and neck will be the last thing to arrive. And when we get to the top, we might want to do some shoulder shrugs. Just shrug them up to your ears. Everything's tight. And then exhale, relax everything. Let's do that again. Shrug and relax. And then you can roll your shoulders forward. You can roll your shoulders back. And then keep them back. Close your shoulder blades on your spine so that your heart is open. Samastitihi. Bring your hands to heart center and close your eyes. You can pick up all 10 toes and spread them wide on the floor, creating a strong base. Press your heart into the outside edges of your thumbs to lift your chest. Relax your shoulders and close your eyes. This is normally where we would set an intention for our class, but since we already set the intention of a beginner's mind, let's just take all the merit that we've developed in our practice today and send it out to the other yogis learning and practicing all over the world. Take a full breath in through your nose and an open mouth exhale. And open your eyes, release your hands. And that is the beginning of a yoga class. Since we like to close every yoga class in Shavasana, let's just hop down there for a minute. Remember, you can put blocks or blanket underneath your knees if you would like. Palms up. If you want to be more open, bringing in energy and down for grounding. Wrap your shoulder blades underneath you. Let your feet, hips, and shoulders fall open. With each exhale, melt into the earth as it rises up to support you. And get heavy in your bones. Again, this is the pose that all of our yoga postures lead up to. So embrace the stillness of your body and your mind. Keep your attention on your breath. And if your mind wanders, just gently call it back to your breath. I'll close with a quote by Rolf Gates. Yoga is not a workout, it's a work in. And this is the point of spiritual practice, to make us teachable, to open up our hearts and focus our awareness so that we can know what we already know and be who we already are. So rest here in stillness for a few moments, assimilating all the work we did today. Before you attempt any movement, start to deepen and lengthen your breath. And then wiggle your fingers and your toes. Circle out your ankles and your wrists. Let your head fall to one side and then to the other. Take a long good morning stretch. Reach your arms overhead. Point your toes. Soften your belly. Let your lower back arch up as you take a big breath in. And exhale into fetal pose on your favorite side. Curl up around your spine. Use your bicep as a pillow and cozy in. In this posture of rebirth, as we move from corpse's pose to fetal pose, take the opportunity to set an intention for your week. Carry this beginner's mind off your mat and approach every situation with curiosity and a desire to learn. On your next inhale, with as little movement as possible, rise up to an easy seat on your mat. Remember the option to sit on a blanket or take any leg position that works for you. Bring your hands to your heart, lengthen your spine. Take a full inhale to seal our intention. And an open mouth exhale. Bring your hands to third eye center, the space between your eyebrows. The light, the love, the teacher, the student, and the hot mess in me recognizes and adores the light, the love, the teacher, the student, and the hot mess in each of you. Bow forward and seal our practice with a namaste. Namaste. Aw, thank you so much for joining us in our exploration of some basic yoga poses today. Thank you to Ananda for helping and Rosie for keeping us company. And soon we'll be releasing installment 2, where we move on to the warming up. Have a great week and enjoy exploring the beginner's mind. I'll see you next time at Be Free Yoga.